Have you ever noticed how easy it is to slip into certain financial habits that seem harmless in the moment, but end up costing a small fortune down the line, especially when you're no longer earning a steady paycheck? For many older Americans, the road to retirement can feel like a series of traps deliberately set to drain our savings, tie up our monthly cash flow, or saddle us with never-ending bills. If you ever wondered why your nest egg isn't stretching as far as you'd hoped, or how some folks manage to preserve their wealth while others seem to watch it trickle away, this video is for you. I'm here to uncover the 10 worst so-called assets that quietly keep people poor in old age. And I call them assets in quotation marks because the truth is they're liabilities, money pits disguised as luxury status symbols, or even sensible purchases. Pay close attention, because you might already own one or two of these. The sooner you identify them, the sooner you can plug those financial leaks and protect your golden years. Let's talk about the first one, which might actually be sitting in your driveway right now. I'm referring to that shiny, brand new car you picked up with the idea that it would be your last major auto purchase, or at least the one that's going to carry you through retirement in style. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The second you drive a new car off the lot, it instantly depreciates by roughly 15%. That's right. If you paid $30,000, you've basically lost $4,500 the moment the tires touch the street outside the dealership. Give it 5 years, and the car might be worth less than half what you paid, even though you're still paying insurance, licensing, registration, maintenance, and possibly a loan or lease payment if you financed it. It's like tossing money straight out the window every single month. Now, I get it. For some people, a new car represents reliability or peace of mind. But ask yourself if that peace of mind is worth a big chunk of your retirement savings. When you're retired, you often aren't putting in 40 hours a week to recoup those losses anymore. That's the key difference. The wealthy tend to see cars as a necessary expense, not a wealth-building tool. Warren Buffett could buy any car he wanted, but for years he drove older vehicles because he knew they added zero real value to his net worth. If you need wheels, consider a gently used car that's 2 or 3 years old, maybe with manufacturer's warranty remaining. You'll dodge the massive depreciation curve and still get a dependable ride. If you want to calculate what you're actually losing by going new, try plugging the purchase amount into an investment calculator. Ask yourself how that money would have grown over 10 or 15 years in an S&P 500 index fund. Often, it's in the tens of thousands of dollars lost. Now imagine how that could have helped cover your medical bills, home repairs, or simply let you travel more during retirement. That's the real opportunity cost of driving a brand new vehicle. Moving on to the second item on our list, something that's often presented as a glamorous vacation investment. Timeshares. You probably heard the pitch. Maybe you were lured into a 2-hour sales presentation with promises of free Disney tickets or stay at a gorgeous beach resort. The sales reps talk about ownership, paint vivid pictures of annual family getaways, and often push the idea that this property will appreciate in value over time. That's the biggest myth out there. Almost nobody wants to buy a timeshare on the secondary market. People who own one often find themselves stuck with skyrocketing maintenance fees, which can run anywhere from a few hundred to a couple $1,000s a year, whether you use a property or not. Then, when you finally decide enough is enough, you discover it's nearly impossible to sell. I've seen stories of owners paying companies just to take the contract off their hands. That's the very definition of a money pit. Something that keeps draining you financially while offering minimal liquidity or upside. Contrast that with simply booking a resort or Airbnb when you want to take a trip. No permanent fees. No multi-year contracts. No sinking feeling in your stomach when the annual bill arrives. This is especially important in retirement, when flexibility is key. Maybe you can't travel the same week every year. Maybe your mobility changes or your budget changes. The bottom line is that timeshares are structured to benefit the companies who sell them, not the consumers. And if you already have one, it may be worth exploring ways to exit that contract before it drains even more of your retirement funds. Now, let's address a giant elephant in many Americans' wallets: credit card debt. This may not look like a classic asset in the traditional sense, but if you're carrying a balance, You're basically locked into a high-interest liability that can crush your retirement lifestyle. The average credit card interest rate is creeping well over 20% these days. Let's do a little math. If you carry even $5,000 of debt at that rate and only make minimum payments, you could end up paying double that amount when all is said and done, and it could stretch out for over a decade. You're basically making the banks rich with money you could have used to cover healthcare costs, pay down a mortgage, or invest for passive income. The real heartbreak here is that many retirees continue to lean on credit cards because they haven't adjusted their spending habits after leaving the workforce. Social security checks and maybe some pension income can be tight, so a credit card feels like a convenient bridge. But that bridge is dangerously expensive. A far better approach is to aggressively pay off those balances before you retire if possible, or if you're already retired, prioritize knocking out high-interest debts as soon as you can. It's like getting an automatic 20% return on your money by eliminating that interest. Don't buy into the myth that you should keep a small balance to boost your credit score. That's a misinterpretation. If you must use credit cards, treat them like cash. Pay them off in full every month. If you can't do that, it's time to scale back expenses. Look into a part-time job, or tap into proven strategies like the debt avalanche method, where you tackle the highest interest rate cards first. Trust me, your future self will thank you. Next up, let's talk about a product that's often pitched as both protection and an investment rolled into one: whole life insurance. Agents love to sell these policies, especially to older adults who are looking for a sense of security for their loved ones. The pitch goes something like this: you're covered for life, and there's a cash value you can borrow against. So it's like saving money, right? Unfortunately, the math rarely works out in your favor. The premiums can be anywhere from 5 to 10 times higher than a comparable term life insurance policy, and most of that extra money in the early years goes toward commissions and administrative fees. Your cash value builds so slowly that if you try to cancel, you might walk away with less than you paid in premiums. A simpler and more cost-effective method is by term and invest the difference. You use a cheap term policy to cover the years you actually have major financial obligations or dependents. Once your house is paid off and your kids or grandkids are grown, you might not even need life insurance. Meanwhile, you invest the savings in an index fund, an IRA, or another stable, lower-fee vehicle that can grow more effectively. If you already have a whole life policy and you're reconsidering it, talk to a fee-only financial planner, someone who doesn't earn commissions off whatever you choose. You might have options like a 1035 exchange to a more efficient policy or partially cashing out. The point is, you want to avoid locking up large sums of money in a product that's neither the best coverage nor the best investment, especially if you're nearing or already in your golden years. Let's pivot to something that might come as a surprise: high-priced degrees or certifications that don't deliver a real return. You might say, well, I'm retired or close to retirement. Why would I go back to school? But many older adults do, sometimes for personal interest, sometimes to help adult children or grandchildren pay for expensive programs. And while learning is wonderful, if you're taking on student loans or co-signing for someone else's pricey degree, you might be setting yourself up for years of repayment on a fixed income. The cost of college in the U.S. has exploded over the last few decades, and not all degrees translate into high-paying jobs. If you or your family decide to pursue higher education, the key is evaluating the return on investment. Are you or your loved ones actually entering a field that pays well enough to justify the debt? Could you complete the first 2 years at a cheaper community college before transferring? Are there scholarships or grants available? The emotional desire to help out can be strong, but remember that if you jeopardize your own financial stability, it might end up being a burden on the entire family later. In retirement, every loan payment hurts more because there's less income to offset it. Look into alternative programs, online certifications, or in-demand vocational skills that cost a fraction of a 4-year university. Education is crucial, but paying tens of thousands for a credential with no real payoff can destroy your financial peace of mind in old age. Another heavy hitter is owning a home that's simply too large for your needs, or purchasing a second property that doesn't generate reliable rental income. Homeownership is often touted as the American dream. And yes, for many, it's a cornerstone of retirement security. But the real trouble starts when you're holding on to a massive residence in your 70s or 80s. Property taxes climb, utilities for extra space you don't use pile up, and maintenance becomes a nightmare if you're not physically up for it. Some folks acquire a second vacation home they rarely visit and watch it become a financial sinkhole. Others think they'll rent it out, only to discover the reality of dealing with tenants, repairs, vacancies, and property managers who nickel and dime them to death. The older you get, the less you want your capital tied up in property that's not generating steady income. Downsizing or moving to a smaller, more manageable residence can free up significant funds that you could use for healthcare, travel, or simply an improved quality of life. If you're thinking about picking up a second property, do the math carefully. Calculate the net rental income after taxes, insurance, HOA fees, and potential vacancy periods. Often, you'll find the return is mediocre compared to simpler alternatives like dividend stocks, REITs, or even a well-managed mutual fund. Plus, the hassle factor is something you really have to consider as you age. The last thing you want is to deal with a burst pipe states away, especially when your energy and mobility might not be what they used to be. The seventh trap is something that can sneak up on longtime business owners, running a small business without a clear exit strategy. Maybe you built your livelihood over decades and always assumed you'd pass it on to children or sell it to fund your retirement. But what if your kids aren't interested? What if the market for your business is shrinking or the next generation of buyers can't get financing to purchase it? Suddenly, you're at an age where you want to retire, but your business is still heavily dependent on your own labor, knowledge, or presence. That's not an asset that can be easily converted into cash flow for retirement. The real tragedy is that many older entrepreneurs keep working long past the point where they want to stop, simply because they haven't prepared a succession plan or found a buyer. To avoid this, you need to treat your business like a saleable commodity early on. Build operating systems and train employees so the business can function without you. Document processes. Keep your financial statements clean and up to date. Explore the possibility of selling or merging well before you need to retire. That way, if you decide to step away at age 65, you won't find yourself stuck at 70 with no end in sight. A business without an exit plan can be a massive liability, especially if age or health issues force you out abruptly. A carefully orchestrated handoff or sale, however, can become a wonderful asset that supports you for the rest of your life. Now let's shift to luxury items, something that might feel harmless in moderation, but can seriously erode your finances. I'm talking about high-end designer clothes, handbags, watches, cars. Anything bought primarily for status rather than utility. It's not that you can't enjoy nice things. But if you're on a fixed income and spending thousands on items that depreciate the moment you walk out of the store, you could find yourself short when real financial emergencies arise. It's very common for people to keep up appearances, especially if they've enjoyed a certain lifestyle earlier in life, but no longer have the same income streams. The truth is, once you're retired, every major luxury purchase has a double effect. The money spent and the opportunity cost of not investing that money. Over 10 or 20 years, that compound growth really adds up. If you do love luxury fashion, consider buying pre-owned items or looking at online resale platforms. Many big-name items lose a third or more of their retail value as soon as they're purchased, making second-hand markets far more economical. The key is to remember that once you stop working full-time, it becomes exponentially harder to replace large sums of money. The wealthy often stay wealthy precisely because they understand this principle. They buy high-dollar items only after their investments are already generating more than enough returns to cover those indulgences. The rest of us often do it backward, and in retirement, that can be a recipe for financial stress. The ninth trap is especially relevant in our modern, tech-obsessed culture, constantly upgrading your gadgets. This one might seem small compared to a house or a business, but the cost can accumulate shockingly fast. Every year, new smartphones, tablets, and laptops hit the market with shiny features that promise a better user experience. And every year, millions of consumers swap out perfectly functional devices, spending hundreds or thousands of dollars in the process. When you're older, technology can indeed help you stay connected with family and handle online banking or telehealth appointments. But do you really need the latest model every single time it's released? Tech companies have perfected planned obsolescence and marketing hype. They rely on that little nagging feeling that your device is outdated, even if it still does everything you need. If you look at the cumulative cost of upgrading a phone every year or two for a decade, you might find you burn through tens of thousands of dollars, money that could cover vacation, paid for part grandchild's education, or cushion an unexpected medical bill. One strategy is to keep using your devices until they truly no longer work for your needs. When it's time to upgrade, consider going for last year's model, which often has a significant discount. You might also look at certified refurbished devices with warranties. The performance difference is usually negligible, and you'll save a substantial chunk of change. Again, every dollar counts when you're in your later years and need to prioritize essential expenses. We've reached the last item, and it might come as a surprise. Over-the-top weddings or big celebrations that eat into your retirement savings. This can apply to your own wedding if you're remarrying, or more commonly, helping fund a child's or grandchild's lavish ceremony. The wedding industry in the United States is a marketing machine that convinces us we need a picture-perfect day with an unlimited budget. Yet the average cost of a wedding can easily top $30,000. For a retired couple or someone approaching retirement, that's a huge fraction of the nest egg. It might be tempting to say, we only do this once, or it's my child's big day, but remember that financial stress later on can be devastating. Those tens of thousands of dollars, if invested wisely, could potentially grow to hundreds of thousands over 20 years. Money that could be used for healthcare, long-term care, or simply a comfortable day-to-day life. Interestingly, research shows that couples who spend less on their weddings often have longer-lasting marriages. Prioritize the meaning and personal significance of the event rather than the spectacle. The same principle applies to all sorts of milestone celebrations, anniversaries, retirement parties, major birthdays. Of course, celebrate life's big moments, but be mindful not to derail your financial stability for a single day. Set a clear budget and stick to it. If you really feel the need to go all out, see if other family members can pitch in, or if you can find creative ways to keep costs in check. After all, the point of a wedding is to begin a new chapter on solid ground, not to start under the weight of debt or drain savings. I know we've covered a lot of ground here, and some of these topics might have felt like tough love, but that's exactly why it's so important to shine a light on them. These 10 money traps are the silent killers of retirement dreams. They lure you in with the promise of luxury, status, convenience, or once-in-a-lifetime experiences, only to bleed your bank account dry when you need every dollar working for you. If you found any of these points relatable or eye-opening, go ahead and leave a comment below saying, "That's me," or "I've fallen for that one." It helps more people discover this information, because unfortunately, too many retirees only realize these pitfalls once they're already in too deep. The good news is that it's never too late to reassess your situation and make changes. Whether that means downsizing your house, trading in an expensive car for a reliable used model, shedding credit card debt, or rethinking an upcoming big event like a wedding, you have the power to protect your finances going forward. Retirement should be a time of peace, exploration, and enjoyment, free from the anxiety of mounting bills and worthless assets. By recognizing and avoiding these traps, you're already ahead of the curve. Thanks for staying with me to the end. If you learned something valuable here, please share this video with someone who might need a wake-up call about their financial habits. And if you have any personal experiences with these so-called assets or have successfully avoided them, I'd love to read about it in the comments. Every story helps build a community of smarter, more empowered folks who refuse to let their wealth slip through their fingers in their golden years. Remember, it's never about how much you make. It's about how much you keep and how effectively you make it grow. Let's make sure your retirement is filled with security, comfort, and the freedom to enjoy life on your terms. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.